Talkfunding. Hello, Talkfunders. Today we're with James from Burst Books. Hello, James. How are you, my friend?
Hi there, I'm doing super well.
Well, James, you're doing well in Kickstarter with your Burst Books inspiring children's picture books. Can you just go into it and talk a little bit about your Burst Books and what you're doing on Kickstarter?
Yeah, we are an American children's media company, started really 6 months ago, have been sort of in stealth mode for the last 2 years and really went big 6 months ago. And we have dozens of children's books. And the whole point of our company is not only to have books, but to really have a revolutionary approach to children's media where we're trying to be old school in a new way and really give a very strong worldview of positivity and hope and happiness and sunlight and sunshine and possibilities for children through books and all kinds of media.
And this is a new form of a book. Well, it's new to me anyway. Is that you're actually going to deliver the books straight to the children's door?
Yeah, the whole point of what I thought the problem with children's book writers has been is they write a children's book, first of all, and they're like, okay, I've done the hard part, which is I've wrote one book, but then they say, okay, I'm going to publish it on Amazon or in a bookstore, and then they throw it on a bookshelf with 1,000 other books, and no one ever gets to see it again. So I thought, how can we avoid both of those problems? And we do have dozens already in 6 months, so that's problem solved. I can talk about that as well. But then I thought, how do we get these books distributed? I don't want to be at the mercy of a publisher or a distribution network that gets to decide and also gets to add to the price of these books, right? And we live in the world of blockchain, internet, and direct to consumer. So no one's really approached children's books from that angle. And I thought, let's go to straight to the consumer and bypass the middleman, the bookseller. And how do we do that? Well, we send the books straight to the parents. And what that does is it really gets rid of one of the biggest pain points for me as a dad of having to constantly search for new books and titles because I don't know what there is. I don't know what to get. I don't know what's good for my children to read, what's maybe not so good. And I don't want to become a PhD in children's books just so I can find something, right? I want to just have something simple and we have it and move on with my day, with my life and have a great time with my kids. I can't really do that yet, where I couldn't. And in some ways, those have started to help me, help our family, and then hopefully help families like ours.
So you're actually part of your own target audience in a way, James.
Absolutely. I know the pain points.
So you're actually like and you're busy working dad and busy working mom, busy family, and so the whole idea, from what I understand, is you ship the books to the family, and it arrives at the doorstep, say the first week in every month, and there'll be one or two books within that parcel that they receive.
That's right. It's two books. They're always different, and they're age appropriate. In other words, one of the things we're building is a system that's going to, with your permission as a parent, of course, is have a database of the age of your child, and we're only starting. So right now, these are, let's say, 2 to 4 year old sort of age centered books. But if you're with the subscription for 10 years, right, hopefully, then the child is now 14, and so we're gonna age with the child and send older and older books, more sort of serious topics, more sort of adventure and more grown themes, like Jules Verne, the classics, like stories and tales, like really interesting material for an older child. And then what's interesting for a 7 year old and what's interesting for a 14-year-old are very different books and stories and themes. And so we're going to continue to stay up to date with that and make sure it's always the most interesting and relevant content for that age group.
That's wonderful. So in one sense, I think in your excellent Kickstarter page, which will be in the video description below, you talk about, so you're actually curating the collection of books, which, as you say, is age appropriate. So say for a 4 to 5 year old, and it's going to be different from an 8 to 9 year old and a 12 to 13 year old. Fantastic.
That's right. Yeah, it's all about It's all about, I think this is the big mistake with some of, again, with the bookstore model or the Barnes and Noble or whatever is the local bookstore next to you, or at Amazon, right? Um, on the one hand, there's so much, and you get overwhelmed with 10,000 titles and colorful, book covers. The one is shinier than the next, and you're like, I don't know which one is actually good for it. But on the other hand, in the midst of this variety and abundance, there's a kind of a shortage as well of exactly what you need, what's good for you. And no one really knows, or you don't know, and you end up getting nothing after all. And so having this curation, having this intentionality, where if you trust our brand, you can trust that we'll have people in lab coats, over here in the Burst headquarters with our beakers and mixing and making sure it's always the best. If you trust that brand, then you don't have to worry about where to go. It comes to you.
And in one sense, there's really like engagement. I take it within that, within your book laboratory, your Burst book laboratory, there'll be engagement and feedback with the parents all the way through this journey from 2-year-old to 14, 15-year-old.
We're already getting tremendous. We just started, right? We just launched just a few, like 10 days ago. We went public for the first time, and we've already received so much fabulous feedback and powerful, affirmative, encouraging messages from parents, that it can only get better. It can only go higher from this point, because there's so much need for just good kid fun and inspirational book content out there. And people like you and I, we're trying to build new things, and people like you and I go into blockchain and space and Tesla, and Uber. No one's really trying children's books, because that's like, it's antiquated, that's passe, right? But it's not passe. Children will never be out of style, and so they're never going to be old fashioned. And so I try to, as an entrepreneur, go into places that have been overlooked. And I'm excited to work with parents and provide very innovative and leading edge solutions to kind of eternal.
And one thing you are providing a solution to, James, is getting the children. You're answering a pain of a parent, which is, how do I get my kid off the screen? And what you're doing is you're delivering physical books to their door, so the kids can get excited about, oh, my book is coming, my book's arrived, and they do the whole excitement of the unboxing. But more importantly, lift the book out and have it in their physical hand, and they don't have to press on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not someone that doesn't believe in technology, obviously. And in fact, in the future, I see very, very pronounced burst content that's on the screens, right? Games and animation, all kinds of things are coming down the pike as part of the same burst subscription. And I'll talk about that if you want, a super secret project coming up in 6 months with animation. So I'm not against technology and screens, but I do think obviously that's been a tremendously a double-edged sword at best, I think, for many families. And like in my family, the screen time is a half an hour a week, right? In most families, it's 2 hours a day, So it's certainly something to be concerned about, and making sure that the media diet for children is properly balanced. And how do you do that? How do you make it interesting enough to put the screen down? You have to have something at home first. I mean, even that's not at all easy to assume that a parent will have lots of children's books at home that a kid can sink their eyes into, right? Because again, back to the first problem, there's too much and you don't know what to get, so you end up just not getting anything. And I think that's why a lot of parents just don't have children's books. They don't know what to get. They don't know what's good for their kids, what's not so good. There's a major trust barrier with like just having thousands of books. You don't know what's good. And apps seem like they just work. They just kind of quiet the kids down, and they just do their magic of creating peace and quiet at home. So it's easier not have to find these books. But I do think it's important that children have books as a very important tactile part of their childhoods, and also learning how to read and all that, and the visual imagination. It's all different when it's tangible. So as long as we have a balanced media diet, and books are part of that, I'm all in favor of that.
Wow, fantastic, James. Before we'll talk about your animated subscription just later on in the interview, but let's just bring it back to the Kickstarter page and the what's inside section, and let's just really look at the nuts and bolts of the subscription model which you're talking about. So it says here, 2 beautiful books with inspiring stories and positive themes, vivid illustrations created by artists from around the world, and original artwork and content created specifically for Burst. So is that really it? People just sign up and they get 2 books per month?
Yeah, it's back to what you mentioned earlier about curation. Yeah, it's handcrafted books in the lab here at the Burst Laboratory in the US, and they're vividly illustrated. That's back to how do you get a child interested in this stuff? It can't be it can't be talking down to them. It has to be visually engaging. So we have like top of the line, best in the world, we think, illustrators working on this, and our illustrators are also from around the world. So we have the sort of like the great illustrators of the planet in some ways working on this stuff. And so the visuals are eye-popping. It's all curated. It's all bespoke, all original. But it's not original in the sense that we just wrote some stories down in these 4 walls. One of the ways we ground ourselves in content and messages that are very good for children is we go to the classic stories that have been around for centuries. That's maybe one of the key, I think, other different aspects about our books, right? I mentioned Jules Verne, so that's for an older age bracket. But if you go back to what would like a Jules Verne poem or a story or a rhyme be for a 3-year-old, right? No one even knows. You have to be a PhD now to even have those kinds of answers. And so we have the classic stories in some cases from a century or more that are very profound and beautiful, heartwarming, combined with eye-popping visuals.
Fantastic. And in the next section of the Kickstarter page, you say, what's at stake? Could you say a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, I'm all in favor of technology, but we're driving down a bit of a perilous slope in terms of not engaging our children with the tactile artifacts of their lives. A lot of times, children's experts advise people to just buy some wooden blocks and bricks, and puzzles and books are a big part of that. Like the more tactile stuff we can have for our children to play with, the more it's that they will develop in a way they've developed for thousands of years, right? And the more we abstract and virtualize their environment, the more we're depriving them of the many thousands of years of a childhood, including yours and my childhood, right? We were still old enough to have caught that old last wave of a tactile childhood, and I can tell you it's been wonderful. And so with our family, we focus on making sure our children are very firmly grounded in the physical, and if they scrape or bruise their knees, that's fine. And they flip through pages and they play with toys, and it's all about giving them the ideal childhood. And I think parents should remember that. But I think companies like ours have to help them with that. That's the other part of this. I'm not here to talk to anyone and say, do this or do that. Companies, businesses need to remember what's best and try to provide it. And many companies don't, or it's not in the bottom line anymore. So we try to give the parents exactly what is, we think, best for children.
In this thank you for that, James. In this section of the future, our future depends on you, and it's really just your ask of supporting your company. Could you say a little bit about your breakdown here of the pie chart?
So it's interesting. We have already written a lot of these books and designed and illustrated them. So a lot of the risk that a Kickstarter campaign has of it being more of a promise, more of a hypothetical, that's no longer, for us, it's not an issue, right? We already have these books done. So the main cost attached to the project is just getting them printed, getting them distributed, building those relationships with warehouse supply chain, partners, business partners, and printers, international, overseas, etc. And a lot of times, the best way to bring prices down for these books is to buy them in vast quantities. And that takes an enormous amount of capital investment. So again, back to helping parents and driving the cost down, we need to make an enormous investment to drive the cost down to make the price much more affordable for the families.
And do you have any books there with you today, James, so we can have a look at them?
Yeah, sure. So here's one. This is one called The Fairies. This is all illustrated by us. Fantastic. And basically, just to give you a summary, this is a story about a boy that struggles with falling asleep, and so these fairies are sort of cajoling him with comfort and beautiful.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
That's my watch there. So as he falls asleep, he sort of goes higher and higher into the clouds, and at this final page, he's found his sleep. And I know my son's takes an hour or so to go to sleep, and this is a book about him. Another book that we have is about a boy, and we have books for boys and girls and all kinds of ethnicities. But the point of books like this, you see the visuals, you see the sort of the facial expressions and the joy and happiness and the color palettes, right? The whole point of the way these books are designed. Here's the sleep. Again, this is a book about sleep as well. But the point of these books is to capture the values of happiness, innocence and joy that a lot of parents think are passé, but a lot of kids don't. They need that, and we're here to help them with that.
Fantastic. And as you were saying at the start of the interview, you're already getting great feedback. I mean, you've been working 2 years in, what was the word? Not secret, in
stealth mode. Yeah.
Stealth mode. That's right. Sorry. And now you're really just launching over the last 6 months, but already you've got really great feedback. So this is one from One Blessed Mama, which is great. The Mama Spotted blog. The books are wonderful with the most stunning illustrations. You don't want to miss. You don't want to miss out on this one. So it's wonderful testimonials you're getting in already, James. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's the best that you could hope for. Is it's other parents like you and moms and dads that just appreciate and want to spend that happy time with their children.
From my initial understanding, it was you're US centric in terms of shipping, etc., etc. However, because there's been so much basically interest in the book company, is you've got some major announcements for international. Like I'm in the UK and Ireland here, so I was going, gosh, I know I've actually my friend who's just been a dad, and I was just before this I was sort of saying, oh, I'm going to interview this book company. I wonder if they can ship to the UK. So let's just look at it. Whenever I first look at this announcement earlier on this morning, it was there was a one big announcement, but I believe there's another announcement for international subscribers, James. And maybe I'll just refresh the page here. And we are going to the UK. So fantastic. So let's talk about the international subscribers and then in the UK ones.
Yeah, for sort of a tactile company like ours, it's, as for any other company like ours, it's the international, the shipping, the distribution piece of the business is very difficult because, well, COVID is one, but also, say we are in the US and we have a customer in Australia, shipping, a slender book like this might be very, very expensive for everybody, obviously across the oceans. And so it was a big challenge to go international with everything else going on. But we indeed have found a way to make it very feasible for us and for the parents in the UK to work this out and share our books with a lot of, in fact, many, I would say maybe almost the majority of our greatest fans right now have been, up until this morning, before this was posted, right? We're in the UK and Australia, and we could not service them. We could not provide them with the books. They were so excited. They were so in love with the project. And we said, yeah, give us 6 months. We'll get to the UK. We'll get to Australia. And they were like, okay, I guess that's what it is. And so we've been working very, very hard for the last 2 weeks. So in the midst of the campaign, we've actually been able to expand our range of options and countries and incorporate two of our biggest fan countries, which is the UK and Australia.
You see, that's fantastic. That's a really nod to your successful path that you're on, James, with the burst books. I mean, it really is. If people are demanding it internationally already, and you're only really at the start of the Kickstarter campaign, the start of your company, it's just a really great nod to the success of your company in the future. Let's just, in terms of moving on, just to look at the Kickstarter campaign itself and the pledges that are on offer. By the way, I just love this here, these covers that you have here. These are from different books that you have in print already.
Right. That's right.
Two little boys, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Fantastic, Little Lark. Fantastic. But sorry, I get distracted because the animations and illustrations are so nice. So let's just look at the pledges. So the first one, I think, is a lovely one called Colorful Future at $17.
It's a very simple scheme. For the first campaign, we thought, why not just make it really simple to understand what the options are? And the options are basically you're buying a subscription, right? So the options are for how long is that subscription? That's really what the options are. So the first option with Colorful Future, that's just for the 1 month, which is no different than just buying the 2 books outright in some ways. It's a 1 month, right? And you're kind of paying, even though this is a major discount, so $17 for 2 books, very, very cheap compared to maybe what it's going to be after the campaign. Nevertheless, it is higher than the other options because it's only for 1 month. But as you go down, right, the next option is for 3 months. You really like the promise of the campaign and our company and our values, and you say, I want to give them 3 months of having them deliver the books to us. And that's $15 a month, right? And then we can skip over the $60. I'll get back to that in a second.
Okay.
But the other one is the $90. That's for 6 months. So 6 months of 2 books a month is that. That's the most affordable one. That's one I recommend to people, mainly because it validates our thesis better than the others, because it's the click and forget. You just get it and the books just come to you and you just enjoy being a parent and being a child rather than having to stress over books all the time. That's the one that validates that thesis the most. But the ones with lesser time frames are options as well.
Wow.
And then the $60 one was, we wanted to give people a chance just to actually buy the books outright. And that's what that is. It's a burst book bundle. There's 6 books in there. It's a great way to just get the books in one fell swoop and not have to wait, but then you're not really part of the system either. So it's whatever people find most convenient for their place in life.
And just so I'm familiar, understand, and that this cost covers postage as well.
Right. So there's 2 things to say. So it does cover postage, and it's exactly what it is. There's no like hidden or extras on any of these things. That being said, for the international, it's a little bit because of the currency exchange and all that. It's going to be the US, like for example, for the UK, right? It's the US pledge amount plus 15%, just to cover for that exchange. But other than that, like there's no other extra fees or hidden anything, which I don't like myself.
Okay, great.
It's all included.
And then that the books arrive, and then after the end of the month, the kids hold on to the books, or what happens then?
That's a great question. We had that asked. Yeah, what happens afterwards? And I have good news for you. It's yours, right? You buy these books, and it just comes sort of, sequentially. But once you get to it, once it gets to you, it's yours. There's no returning. There's no looking for how do I replace it with something else. It's yours for as long as you want it.
And then I take it of a certain age, I suppose the kids themselves can engage with you guys with burst books to sort of say, I really enjoyed this book. I want another book similar to this.
Yeah, and the fact that it's owned by you, it's I think really great from a perspective of kids not being the best caretakers of books. So I knew from the start this could not be sort of a lease program because they would come back destroyed. And this way you keep them and let your kids draw on these books and make paper airplanes out of them. It's all good.
I think that's a very diplomatic way of saying it. They're not the best caretakers of books.
My kids,
James.
my
Just before we just finish off with looking at the Kickstarter campaign, I'm really interested. I really get through the interview, you've clearly got other things in the pipeline. You've had a 2-year stealth mode. You're 6 months into actually emerging into the marketplace, and this Kickstarter is your first Kickstarter, I believe. But already you've sort of given a nod to other projects which are coming down the line, such as the animated part. Can we just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a very sort of top secret project that I wanted to share with you just a little bit. We know that books, as much as it is important to have a tactile childhood, we know that parents have their own minds and their own line where they draw on how much of each of all the different things they can give to their children. So we knew that one way to lose a child's interest is the screen, because it is in some ways so engaging, and so there's so much movement on it, there's sounds and all that. So we thought, how can we give the same experience of childhood and happiness, clean, sort of hopeful, sunlit worldview, not only through books. And so we've been partnering with, let's just put it this way, there's licenses for several hundred of animation pieces, and we're almost finished with building a streaming app that's going to go head to head with Netflix, where that one is built for children and it has all kinds of features where it turns itself off after a certain time, for example, that it's meant for families and children to watch as much or as little as you want to watch. So you have within, not for this campaign, but sort of for the long-term future of the company, not only books, as many books as we can make, hundreds, eventually thousands, and then an app is coming, and then down the line, toys and games and puzzles and as many things as we can create to amplify childhoods.
Wow, fantastic. Amplify childhood. What a lovely way to finish off the interview. You certainly are amplifying childhood here, James, today with Burst Books, Inspiring Children's Fiction Books, which is live on Kickstarter. All the links will be in the video description below. James, I love this product that you're doing. I sincerely wish the best for yourself, your family, and for the company Burst Books. Thank you so much, my friend. Bye now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.